Imagine looking at your dispatch board right now. I mean, you've moved, what, like 30% more freight this month?
Right. A massive increase.
Yeah, and your drivers are working overtime, the trucks are constantly on the road, and the sheer volume of work coming in is just incredible.
It looks great on paper.
Exactly. By all traditional metrics, you should be popping champagne. But instead, you're sitting there staring at your bank balance, sweating over how you're going to make payroll and cover the diesel accounts on Friday.
Yeah, that Friday panic.
It's awful. Your profitability is completely flat, and the operational pressure is just suffocating.
So why does winning in the South African logistics industry suddenly feel exactly like losing?
Well, it's a profound paradox, honestly. And it's one that fleet owners are living every single day out there. You know, you're doing more work, moving more tonnage, managing way more vehicles.
But the money isn't there. Right. The financial stability and the operational ease you expected to unlock when you scaled up, they're just missing. Gone. And the Greystride insights we're looking at today dive straight into the heart of this.
Which is exactly why we're doing this deep dive. I'm your host, and I'm here with our resident logistics strategy expert to figure out what's actually going on.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, Greystride works extensively with transport and logistics businesses right here in South Africa, and they've documented how these recurring nightmares, like tight cash, flat margins, relentless pressure, they're actually not separate problems.
Wait, they aren't?
No, they are glaring clues pointing to a structural root cause.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the daily reality on the depot floor is absolute chaos. According to the Greystride research, management spends an exorbitant amount of time fighting these highly visible fires.
Constantly. Just firefighting all day.
Yeah, we're talking about clients delaying payments, fuel costs spiking overnight, drivers not pitching for shifts.
Unexpected maintenance bills that just blindside you.
Exactly. And then you have customers demanding lower rates for better service on top of all of that.
And look, those aren't just hypotheticals. If a trike blows a turbo, it needs to be fixed. That's a real fire.
Right. You can't just ignore a blown turbo.
Exactly. If a major client hasn't paid their invoice, somebody has to chase that money down to keep the lights on. The source material is very clear here. These are legitimate crises.
So they aren't saying you're crazy for stressing about them.
Not at all. The issue isn't that operators are fixing them. It's that the entire business gets trapped in a reactive cycle. You know, you spend all your energy responding to these surface-level symptoms while the underlying mechanism generating the fires goes completely untouched.
Okay, look, I hear that. But telling a guy with like 3 broken down trucks, a diesel supplier threatening to cut him off, and a major client threatening to cancel a contract.
It's a lot of pressure.
It's massive. Telling that guy he needs to, quote, look at his underlying mechanisms, it sounds a bit like telling someone in a burning house to check their smoke alarms, you know?
That's a very fair point.
Like, it's totally tone deaf to their reality. How is a fleet operator supposed to just ignore the very hot, very real fires burning right in front of them?
Well, what's fascinating here is that Greystride is absolutely not suggesting you ignore the fires. You can't. The operations have to run. But what they are pointing out is the pattern of the fires.
The pattern, like how often they happen.
Sort of. The clue is in how the pressure constantly changes shape.
Meaning what exactly? Like solving one problem just triggers the next one. Is it like a game of whack-a-mole?
Exactly that. It's exactly like whack-a-mole. Think about the timeline. Let's say month 1, you're hit with a massive cash flow crisis.
Okay. Pretty common scenario.
Right. So you scramble, you shuffle funds around, maybe you take a short-term loan.
Just to survive the month.
Yeah, you survive. But by month 2, the problem morphs. Now it's a capacity issue. You don't have enough trucks on the road to service the demand.
Let me guess. Because 2 of them are sitting in the workshop waiting for parts you couldn't afford in month 1.
Bingo. So what do? You rent extra vehicles to solve the capacity issue and keep the client happy?
Which is expensive.
Very. Then month 3 rolls around, and suddenly you have a profitability problem.
Because you moved the volume, but the rental costs wiped out your entire margin.
Exactly. You're just chasing the pain around the business.
It's like trying to patch a leaky bucket, right?
Yeah.
You plug one hole with your finger, and the water just bursts out of another one. Or, trying to cool down an overheating engine by just pouring cold water on the hood.
That's a great way to put it.
Like you get a lot of steam, you feel like you did something really productive, but the thermostat is still broken and the engine block is still melting. The pressure didn't leave the system at all. It just found a new place to vent.
And that shared system is your business model. Since these symptoms are just shape-shifting manifestations of a deeper issue, we have to pivot our focus.
To the model itself.
Right. We have to look at what is actually generating these conditions day in and day out. The recurring pattern is the message here.
Okay, I'm tracking with you.
When cash flow, capacity, and profitability take turns holding your business hostage, they are all being driven by a misaligned commercial structure.
So what does this all mean for the actual mechanics of a transport company? Because we aren't talking about a high-level corporate concept here. We're talking about the gritty, physical reality of how a fleet makes money in South Africa.
It all comes down to unit economics and alignment with market realities. The source points out that your business model governs everything.
Like what, specifically?
How work is won, how assets are utilized, how your costs are structured, and ultimately how cash is generated.
Okay.
When that structure aligns with the reality of the market, it acts as a shock absorber. So a blown tire or a temporary diesel spike eats into a buffer, but the company doesn't spiral.
But when it's misaligned.
When the model is misaligned, the structure itself generates the pressure.
Let's weave these examples together, because the source lists a few misalignments that I know are going to make fleet owners physically wince.
Oh, absolutely. They hit close to home.
Let's start with the classic trap. Pursuing growth through volume, but on margins that are structurally too thin.
Yes, the volume track.
Like you go out and aggressively win more contracts, you're running way more routes, but the cost per kilometer, your CPK, is just completely disconnected from your fixed overheads.
Or it's disconnected from the reality of your asset utilization. Let's say you model a contract, assuming the truck is loaded in both directions.
Okay, a perfect scenario.
Right. You calculate a tight but acceptable margin based on a perfect 100% efficiency. But the market reality is that you're running, say, 30% deadhead miles.
Empty backhaul.
Exactly. Every single empty kilometer is burning diesel, it's wearing down tires, and it's consuming driver hours without generating a single cent of revenue.
Wow. So you're literally funding the client's freight out of your own pocket on the return trip.
That is exactly what is happening.
And because the margin was paper thin to begin with just to win the tender, those deadhead miles completely wipe out the profit for the entire round trip.
Yeah, they obliterate it.
So you're moving more volume, you're getting way more wear and tear on your trucks, and you're doing it essentially for free.
Which logically forces us into the next structural flaw, the source highlights, the cash flow squeeze.
Oh, this one is brutal.
If you're running on razor-thin margins, you desperately need cash velocity. You need the money to come in quickly to fund the diesel for the next trip.
Because you don't have a buffer.
Exactly. But what happens? You land a massive blue-chip client. They guarantee high volume, which you think solves your profit problem.
Right, you think you've won the lottery?
But then they dictate a 90-day payment term.
Oh, man. This is where the math just gets vicious.
It really does.
Think about it. You're paying for diesel up front, or, maybe on a 7-day account if you're lucky.
Right.
You're paying your drivers weekly. Your toll fees are instant. But you are waiting 3 whole months for that massive invoice to clear.
You've essentially just become an unsecured, interest-free credit facility for a massive corporation.
That is insane when you put it like that.
And to survive that 90-day valley of death, fleet owners have to bridge the gap somehow.
Right. They use overdrafts or invoice discounting or revolving credit facilities.
But bridging finance isn't free. The interest on that debt eats whatever tiny percentage of margin was actually left in the contract.
So wait. You built a business on a foundation that requires clients to pay in 30 days to cover your weekly burn rate, but you sign an anchor client that pays in 90.
Yes.
So when you're sitting at your desk sweating over payroll on a Friday, it's incredibly easy to blame the client for paying late.
Oh, it's the easiest thing in the world.
But the structural reality, the actual root cause here, is a business model that allowed you to accept toxic payment terms in the first place without pricing the cost of that finance into the rate.
Exactly. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the late payment is just the crack in the wall. The foundation is the commercial agreement itself.
Wow. Okay, that hurts, but it's true.
You can yell at your accounts department to collect faster or complain about how unfair the industry is, but the structural reality of the contract you signed remains unchanged.
The model created the condition.
The business model created the condition created the cash squeeze, and the outcome is you scrambling for payroll every single month.
Which brings us to the operational bottleneck. Because, honestly, who is managing all this chaos?
That is the third massive structural flaw the source points to.
Scaling the fleet without evolving the management systems.
This is such a classic entrepreneurial trap. You add vehicles because the demand is there. Maybe you bought them to service that new 90-day client, but the entire operation is still entirely dependent on the founder.
Right. When you have 4 trucks, the owner knows the quirks of every single vehicle.
Oh, absolutely. They know truck number 3 has a sticky gearbox, and driver number 2 always needs a reminder about his logbook.
It's all in their head. But suddenly you have 40 trucks.
And one human being cannot manually dispatch 40 trucks, manage the complex maintenance schedules, chase the 90-day debtors, and negotiate diesel rebates.
It's physically impossible. You'd never sleep.
The system breaks, maintenance slips, which leads to breakdowns on the road. Now you're paying exorbitant towing fees, you're missing delivery windows, and facing penalties from the client.
And the pressure just keeps compounding.
Right. If we pull back and look at these 3 elements together, thin margins, hiding empty backhauls, crippling 90-day payment terms, and a founder acting as the sole operational bottleneck, you see a very rigid cause and effect relationship.
It's not just bad luck.
No, the recurring patterns aren't bad luck. They aren't just a tough month. A transport company constantly experiencing cash flow pressure usually has a structural reason behind it.
A fleet growing without improving profitability is exposing a commercial model that simply fails to convert activity into surplus capital.
Exactly. It's a hard truth.
It's a really bitter pill to swallow, realizing the enemy is basically inside the gates. But this naturally leads to the trap so many ambitious operators fall into.
The growth trap.
Yeah. If the structure is fundamentally flawed, why do they keep pushing the accelerator? Why keep adding trucks?
But because there seems to be this deeply held, almost mythical belief in logistics that sheer growth will eventually fix the pressure.
It's the assumption that scale cures everything, right? Like, if we just land one more big national contract, we'll have the cash injection we need.
Or, if we just buy 5 more tautliners, the economies of scale will finally kick in and the margins will fix themselves.
We just need to survive until peak season. I've heard that so many times.
But Greystride is ruthlessly honest about this. Sometimes that growth offers a fleeting moment of relief.
Like a temporary high.
Yeah, a big upfront deposit from a new client might hide the structural cash flow hole for, say, 6 weeks. You feel like you can breathe again, but it's an illusion.
Because the underlying model hasn't changed.
Putting growth on top of an unstable structure doesn't stabilize it. Growth actually accelerates the collapse.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Think about it like putting a massive 600 horsepower engine into a bakkie or a truck with a cracked chassis.
I love this analogy.
That
You might convince yourself, hey, the bigger engine will give us more speed, we can squeeze in an extra load per week, and that will solve all our cash flow problems.
Right.
But you haven't fixed the frame. All that extra torque and power doesn't make the truck run better. It puts immense physical stress on the metal.
It tears it apart.
Exactly. It actually tears the cracked chassis apart exponentially faster than the old, slower engine would have.
And that physical stress is exactly what happens to a business's infrastructure.
How so?
Well, if your business model loses a fraction of a percent of margin on every single trip due to structural inefficiencies, like those empty backhauls or the unpriced financing costs we talked about, doing 1,000 more trips doesn't magically bring you closer to profitability.
Oh, wow. It drains your capital 1,000 times faster. Precisely. The weaknesses become exponentially more expensive to maintain. A maintenance oversight on 4 trucks is a headache, sure.
But a systematic maintenance failure on 40 trucks? That's a bankruptcy.
Exactly. A 90-day payment delay on a small account makes for a tight week. But a 90-day delay on a multi-million rand contract
Means you are bridging massive amounts of capital at absolutely punishing interest rates.
This raises an important question for anyone listening who maybe feels a knot forming in their stomach right about now.
Yeah, it's getting real.
Are you scaling a successful commercial model, or are you just heavily investing in making your structural flaws more expensive?
That is a brilliant question.
Recognizing that the recurring pain points are a direct message about how your business functions beneath the surface is a critical turning point.
Because when the pattern becomes the message, you can't keep having these weekly operational meetings trying to yell at the symptoms.
No, you have to elevate the entire conversation.
Right. When the same pressure points keep appearing, despite your team's exhausting efforts to resolve them, the conversation just has to move from operations to structure.
You have to stop asking, why didn't the client pay on Friday? And start asking, Why does our model rely on a client with a 90-day payment cycle when our operational costs demand a 7-day cash cycle?
That's the real shift.
Mhm.
The source makes a really compassionate point here, though, which I think takes a lot of the shame out of this realization.
It does. It's very practical.
You don't have to overhaul your structure because you're a failure as a business owner or because the business is doomed.
No, you do it because the model that created your previous success is simply no longer capable of supporting your next stage of growth.
It worked then, but it won't work now.
Exactly. A model heavily dependent on the founder's daily intervention was entirely necessary to get the first 5 trucks on the road. It was a winning strategy back then.
But applying that same strategy to a 50-truck fleet turns a massive strength into a fatal bottleneck.
That's the evolution of a business.
So, to bring all of this together, the ultimate takeaway from these Greystride insights is that meaningful change in your transport business does not start with another tactical Band-Aid.
It doesn't.
It doesn't start with negotiating a slightly better fuel rebate or swapping out your dispatch software or even firing a difficult client.
It starts with a willingness to ruthlessly interrogate whether your current architectural structure can actually produce the financial and operational outcomes you demand.
The reality of logistics is completely uncompromising on this front. Until the underlying model changes, the outcome won't.
You really just can't outwork a bad structure, no matter how hard you try.
So, to the fleet owners and operators navigating the South African transport landscape this week, as you look at your dispatch boards, as you analyze your cash flow statements and deal with the inevitable fires that will pop up today, try to shift your perspective.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, don't just see them as daily annoyances or, industry bad luck. Look at them as structural clues. They are trying to expose the cracks in your foundation before the whole thing caves in.
And stepping back from the immediate urgency is incredibly difficult when the trucks have to roll, I know. But interrogating your model is the only proven way to break the cycle of exhaustion.
Absolutely. I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. Building on that idea of outgrowing your past success. What if the very business model that successfully got your transport company off the ground in the early days, the exact hustle, the specific contract terms, the manual oversight that bought your first depot, what if that is exactly what is holding you back from scaling today?
It's a tough question to face.
It is. How do you recognize the precise moment when your winning formula silently morphs into your biggest liability? It might be time to stop throwing cold water on the engine block and finally ask yourself if it's time to pull the truck into the bay and rebuild the engine.